At last, the beginning of the end of this horrible nightmare might be out there on the horizon. The 95% effective headlines are great news, but COVID is an emergency, and this vaccine was developed and reviewed at warp speed, so there's still a lot about it that we just don't know. And how fast this vaccine can help get us back to real life is unclear.
In normal times, it can take years for a vaccine to go from development to clinical trials to approval. But that's not when the death count from an infectious disease reaches 3,000 per day.
Pfizer's vaccine trial lasted just 2 months after they gave people 2 doses. And that leaves a lot of unanswered questions. First, safety.
And it's extremely safe for people to take.
Bad reactions were super rare in Pfizer's trial. Experts are pretty confident that'll hold up. There were a couple of bad allergic reactions in the UK, and while there weren't any in Pfizer's trial, it is something to keep an eye on, especially for people with severe allergies, the kind that make you carry around an EpiPen. But researchers don't really know how safe the vaccine is for pregnant women, or fetuses, or people with weakened immune systems. So how well does it work? This vaccine is effective in preventing COVID, but for how long? Pfizer followed people for 2 months, but anything past that is uncertain.
What has happened in the short amount of time is useful and not only useful, but really great. What I'd like to see is that we get a few of the bugs out, some of the unknowns, such that we can go forth with a little bit more confidence.
Scientists can't know yet when or if immunity wears off. And with the question about how long immunity lasts comes questions about how protected we'll be a year down the line and how many times we're going to have to get the vaccine. We might be entering a world where you have to get your yearly COVID-19 shot right along with your flu shot. Now, let's talk about the real world. Clinical trials are great, but they're not life, which is messy. That 95% effectiveness we've been hearing about requires 2 doses of the vaccine. Well, what if you go for 1 shot and then space on the second one? The trial showed that 1 dose does provide more protection than nothing, about 50%. But we don't know how long that 50% lasts. And even if you do get both shots, you might still be contagious. The vaccine does a good job in preventing people from getting sick. But Pfizer scientists didn't study if vaccinated people can still carry the virus and still spread it.
So I may have no symptoms, but am I asymptomatically in producing virus? If that were clear, then it would help me to know that this vaccine is going to be effective not only in stopping disease and deaths, but in ending the COVID pandemic.
And what about the kids? FDA's emergency authorization covers people 16 years old and up. They only studied a handful of 16 and 17-year-olds, and a vaccine for children or babies is months or even years away. You can't get to that holy grail of herd immunity with millions of unvaccinated kids running around. Racial and ethnic diversity is a huge issue with all vaccines. About 10% of the Pfizer subjects were Black. About 25% were Hispanic. Trust in vaccines in those communities can be low, but risk from COVID is high. Experts warn you're going to need a lot more than just 1 fast clinical trial to convince people that the vaccine is safe. Pfizer says it has a bunch of ongoing studies to keep following patients to get answers to these questions.
It's just not the magic panacea that we want it to be and that we hope it is, because we just don't know enough about coronavirus, about COVID-19, and about what the vaccines do and do not do.
So 95% effective, even for a little while, is a great place to start.